The storm hit Keswick at sunset, turning the orange sky into a dark mass of clouds and lightning. Jake Murphy closed the main door of his repair shop and locked it tight. The wind was already shaking the old building, making the metal walls groan and bend. He had seen storms like this before on the frontier planet. But this one felt different. Stronger. Angrier. Jake walked back to his workbench and looked at the broken mining drill he had been fixing all day. The owner needed it back by tomorrow morning, but the storm would keep him inside tonight. He picked up his tools and started working again. The sound of rain hitting the roof was loud, like 1,000 drums playing at once. He had lived on Keswick for 5 years now. The planet was on the edge of human space, far from Earth and the core worlds. Most people came here to mine rare metals, or to hide from something. Jake came because he liked the quiet. He was a good mechanic, maybe one of the best, but he never wanted the busy life of the inner colonies. Out here, he could fix things in peace. The lightning flashed outside, bright enough to light up his whole workshop. Thunder followed a second later, shaking the floor under his feet. Jake put down his tools and walked to the window. The rain was so heavy he could barely see 20 feet in front of him. His shop sat alone on a flat stretch of land, with nothing but rocks and dried grass around it for miles. Then he saw something move in the distance. At first, he thought it was just debris blown by the wind. But the lightning flashed again, and he saw it clearly. Something large had crashed into the ground about 200 yards from his shop. It was not moving anymore. Jake grabbed his rain jacket and a flashlight. He knew he should wait until the storm passed, but something made him go outside. Maybe it was a damaged ship. Maybe someone needed help. He pushed the door open and stepped into the rain. The wind almost knocked him down immediately. He put his head down and walked toward the crash site. The closer he got, the more he realized this was not a ship. It was too big, and the shape was wrong. When he reached it, his flashlight beam fell on something he had never seen before. A creature, massive, covered in white scales that seemed to glow even in the darkness. It had wings, or what used to be wings. They were crushed and bent at terrible angles. The creature was breathing, but barely. Jake had heard stories about the Dravik species, dragon-like aliens who ruled their own systems and rarely came to human space. They were supposed to be proud warriors who flew through the skies of their worlds. This one looked like it had fallen from a great height. Its eyes opened slightly when Jake's light hit its face. They were red, like burning coals. The creature made a sound, low and painful. It tried to move but could not. Jake could see why. Its back was broken. The spinal area was bent in a way that no spine should bend. The creature's back legs and tail did not respond when it tried to move them. Only its front legs twitched slightly. Jake stood there in the rain, thinking about what to do. He was just a mechanic. He did not know alien medicine. He did not even know if this creature could be helped, but he could not just leave it here to die in the storm. That was not who he was. He ran back to his shop and got his cargo sled, the one he used to move heavy equipment. He also grabbed every tarp and blanket he owned, along with his medical kit. It was designed for humans, but maybe some of it would work. He drove the sled back through the storm, fighting the wind every inch of the way. When he reached the creature again, it was still breathing. Jake worked quickly. He spread out the tarps and tried to figure out how to move something so large without hurting it more. The creature watched him with those red eyes, and Jake saw something in them. Pain, yes, but also confusion, maybe even shame. "I am going to help you," Jake said, even though he did not know if the creature could understand human speech. "Just stay still." It took him 2 hours to get the creature onto the sled and back to his shop. The storm was getting worse, and Jake was soaked through. His muscles ached from the effort. The creature was heavy, easily 3 times his weight, but he managed to get it inside and onto a clear space in his workshop. Jake turned on all the lights and looked at the damage more carefully. The wings were destroyed. The bones inside them were shattered in multiple places. The spine was the worst problem. He could see where the neural pathways were crushed. Even with human medicine, that kind of damage would mean paralysis for life. He did not know if the Dravik had better options, but he doubted it. The creature was watching him. Jake met its eyes and saw something that surprised him. The creature was not afraid of death. It seemed to expect it. It looked at Jake like it was waiting for him to finish what the crash had started. "No," Jake said firmly. "I am not going to kill you. I am going to help." He opened his medical kit and pulled out pain medication. He had no idea what dose would work for a Dravik, so he made his best guess based on the creature's size. He found a place on its front leg that looked like it might have a major vein and carefully injected the medicine. The creature hissed, but did not try to stop him. Jake spent the rest of the night working. He used metal braces from his shop to stabilize the broken wings so they would not hurt the creature more. He fashioned a support system for the spine using foam padding and adjustable straps. It was not a cure, but it would keep the creature comfortable while he figured out what to do next. By dawn, the storm had passed. Jake sat on the floor next to the creature, exhausted. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago. The creature was sleeping now, its breathing more steady. Jake looked at the broken wings and the damaged spine, and his mind was already working on a problem. He was a mechanic. He fixed things. This was just another thing that needed fixing. The creature's eyes opened. It looked at Jake for a long moment. Then it made a sound. Different from before. Not painful. More like a question. "My name is Jake," he said. "You crashed near my shop. You are badly hurt, but you are alive. I do not know what happens next, but we will figure it out." The creature blinked slowly. Then it made another sound. Softer this time. Jake did not speak Dravik, but he understood anyway. It was a sound of acceptance. Or maybe the beginning of trust. Jake stood up and stretched his sore muscles. The sun was rising outside, painting the sky orange and gold. He had a lot of work ahead of him, but he had faced impossible problems before. This was just one more. He looked at the broken creature in his workshop and made a promise to himself. He would find a way to help. That was what he did. He fixed things, and he always gave everything a chance to work again. 3 weeks had passed since the storm. Jake had learned many things in that time. He learned that the creature could understand human speech perfectly, even if it could not speak it. He learned that its name was Ashir, communicated through careful gestures and drawings in the dirt. He learned that Dravik culture considered Ashir already dead, that a paralyzed warrior had no place in their society. Most importantly, Jake learned that Ashir expected to be abandoned. Jake sat at his workbench, surrounded by pieces of mining equipment, ship parts, and neural interface components he had ordered from 3 different planets. The cost had emptied most of his savings, but he did not care. He had a plan. It was crazy. Probably impossible. But it was a plan. Ashir lay in the corner of the shop where Jake had made him comfortable. The big creature could move his head and front legs now, but nothing below the damaged spine worked. Jake had fashioned a cushioned platform that kept pressure off the injury. Ashir watched Jake work every day, those red eyes following every movement. "The problem," Jake said, talking out loud like he always did when working on a difficult project, "is that your spine cannot carry signals anymore. The nerves are crushed. I cannot fix that with medicine or surgery, but I can go around it." Ashir made a low rumbling sound. Jake had learned this meant curiosity. Jake held up a neural interface chip, the kind used in mining exoskeletons to let workers control heavy machinery with their thoughts. "This connects to your brain directly. It reads electrical signals from your neurons and translates them into commands. Normally, it controls a suit of mechanical limbs, but what if we used it to control real limbs, or artificial ones?" He walked over to Ashir and knelt down. "I want to try something. It might not work. It might hurt. But if you are willing, I think we can get you moving again. Not with your own body, but with something better. Something that does not break as easily." Ashir stared at him for a long moment. Then the creature slowly lowered his head, touching Jake's hand with his snout. Jake understood. It meant yes. It meant trust. The first step was mapping Ashir's neural patterns. Jake spent 5 days attaching sensors to Ashir's head. running tests, and recording how the creature's brain worked when he tried to move his paralyzed limbs. The patterns were different from humans, more complex in some ways, but the basic principle was the same. Thoughts created electrical signals. Those signals could be read. Jake worked 16-hour days. He barely ate. His regular customers started going to other repair shops, but he did not care. This was the most important project of his life. He was not just fixing a machine. He was giving someone their life back. The hardest part was building the mechanical frame. It had to be strong enough to support Ashir's weight but light enough to be worn. It had to connect perfectly to the neural interface without causing pain. And it had to look natural, or as natural as machine parts could look. Jake used titanium alloy from a scrapped cargo ship for the frame. He built 4 mechanical legs that would attach to Ashir's existing limbs, providing structure and movement. Each leg had dozens of servos and joints, controlled by the neural interface. The real challenge was the wings. Ashir's biological wings were beyond repair. Jake had to remove them completely, a process that took 3 careful days. Ashir bore the procedure with remarkable patience, trusting Jake even when the pain must have been terrible. In their place, Jake built wings from scratch. The design came from studying birds and aircraft. He used lightweight carbon fiber for the frame and a special polymer fabric for the wing surface. The fabric was tough but flexible, able to catch air like real wings. Each wing was larger than Ashir's originals had been, with a span of nearly 30 feet. They folded against Ashir's back when not in use. The neural interface would control everything. Ashir would think about moving his back leg, and the mechanical leg would move. He would think about flying, and the artificial wings would extend and flap. In theory, ready to try? Jake asked after 2 months of constant work. His shop looked like a war zone, covered in parts and tools and empty coffee cups. But the mechanical harness was complete. It sat on the floor, gleaming silver and black in the morning light. Ashir made an affirmative rumble. Jake had already implanted the neural interface chip in a careful surgery a week ago. Now came the moment of truth. Would the system actually work? Jake carefully fitted the harness onto Ashir's body. It took an hour to get everything connected properly. The mechanical legs attached to Ashir's limbs with padded clamps. The wing assembly sat on his back, connected to the neural interface through dozens of tiny wires. A power pack, charged by solar panels Jake had installed on the roof, would keep everything running. "Okay," Jake said, stepping back. "Try to stand." Nothing happened for a long moment. Then Ashir's front right leg twitched. The mechanical leg attached to it moved smoothly, responding to the neural command. Then the back right leg moved. Then the left legs. Ashir was standing. For the first time in 2 months, he was standing on his own. The sound that came from Ashir was not something Jake had heard before. It was loud, echoing through the workshop, and probably across the empty land outside. It was a roar of triumph, of joy, of freedom regained. Ashir took a step. The mechanical legs moved perfectly in sync with his thoughts. Then another step. He walked in a circle around the workshop, and Jake saw tears forming in those red eyes. Dragons could cry. Jake had not known that. "The wings," Jake said. "Try the wings." "Jake, try the wings." Ashir stood still. Jake watched as the wing assembly activated. The carbon fiber frames extended smoothly from Ashir's back, unfolding like massive sails. The polymer fabric caught the light from the windows. They were beautiful. Different from biological wings, but beautiful in their own way. Ashir tried to flap them. The movement was jerky at first, uncoordinated, but with each attempt, it got smoother. The neural interface was learning, adapting to Ashir's thought patterns. Within an hour, the wings moved as naturally as if Ashir had been born with them. "We need more space," Jake said. "And you need practice. But Ashir, I think you are going to fly again." That night, Jake sat outside his shop while Ashir practiced walking with the mechanical legs. The big creature moved back and forth across the open ground, getting used to the sensation. The moon was full, making Ashir's white scales glow. The mechanical parts gleamed silver in the moonlight. Jake thought about what he had built. It was not perfect. The system would need maintenance and upgrades. But it worked. He had taken someone the universe had written off and given them a second chance. That felt good. That felt right. Ashir walked over and sat down next to Jake. The big creature was tired from all the practice, but his eyes were bright with something Jake had not seen before. Hope. Jake reached out and touched one of the mechanical wings. "You know," he said quietly, "I think you are going to do something important with this second chance. I do not know what yet, but I can feel it." Ashir made a soft rumbling sound and gently bumped Jake with his head. It was a gesture of affection, of friendship. In 2 months, the proud warrior who had expected death had learned to trust a human mechanic. And the mechanic had learned that sometimes the most important repairs are not the machines. They are the souls inside them. Jake smiled. Tomorrow, they would try flying. But tonight, it was enough to sit under the stars with a friend and know that impossible things could become possible with enough determination and care. 3 years changed everything and nothing at the same time. Jake's shop still sat on the same empty stretch of land on Keswick. He still fixed mining equipment and broken machinery. He still preferred the quiet of the frontier. But now he had a companion who flew circles above the shop every morning, mechanical wings catching the sunlight. Ashir had become part of the landscape. Local miners and settlers no longer stared when they saw the white dragon landing near Jake's workshop. Children from the nearby settlement would come to watch Ashir fly, and he would perform aerial tricks for them, swooping and diving with a grace that made everyone forget. His wings were made of metal and polymer fabric. Jake sat outside one evening, drinking coffee and watching the sunset. Ashir landed nearby, folding his mechanical wings with practiced ease. The system had been upgraded twice in 3 years. The wings were stronger now, more efficient. Ashir could fly for hours without draining the power pack. "You are getting better at the rolls," Jake said. Ashir made an amused rumbling sound and settled down next to Jake. The big creature had learned to understand Jake's habits. Evening coffee time was for talking. Jake would share stories about Earth, about human history, about the philosophy that guided human culture. Ashir listened to everything. "I heard something interesting today," Jake continued. "A trader came by. He said there is trouble in Dravik space. The Skylords are becoming more cruel. They are killing anyone who is weak or different. There are even rumors of rebellion." Ashir's posture changed. His whole body went tense. Jake had learned to read these signs. This was a topic that caused pain. Jake pulled out a small communication device and handed it to Ashir. He also left this. He said there are encrypted messages on it. "For you." Ashir took the device carefully in his front claws. His mechanical legs shifted, a sign of uncertainty. He looked at Jake with those red eyes, and Jake saw conflict there. Fear and duty wrestling with each other. "You can listen to them," Jake said gently. "I will give you privacy." But Ashir shook his head. He activated the device. A voice came through, speaking in the Dravik language. Jake did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. Desperation. Pleading. The voice spoke for several minutes, then stopped. Another voice came, then another. 5 messages total. When they finished, Ashir sat very still. Jake waited. He had learned that Ashir needed time to process difficult information. Finally, the big creature made a series of sounds that Jake had learned meant grief. "Bad news?" Jake asked. Ashir picked up a stick with his claws and drew in the dirt. He had gotten good at communicating this way. He drew a symbol that represented Dravik Prime, the home world. Then he drew many small figures. Some he crossed out. Dead. Then he drew a larger figure with a crown. "The tyrant. The Skylord is killing your people," Jake said. It was not a question. Ashir nodded. He drew more. Young Dravik forced to fight each other. Disabled Dravik thrown from cliffs. Families torn apart. A culture built on strength turning into a culture built on cruelty. The messages had been from old friends, from rebels, from people who remembered Ashir before his injury. They were begging him to come back. "But you are supposed to be dead," Jake said. "If you return, they will see your mechanical parts. They will see that you needed help from an alien. From a human. What will they do?" Ashir drew a figure of himself, then crossed it out. "They would try to kill him." Again, Jake sipped his coffee. "So you have a choice. Stay here. Safe. Where you have a good life. Or go back and probably die trying to help people who abandoned you." Ashir looked at Jake for a long time. Then he made a sound, a question. "What would Jake do?" Jake laughed sadly. "Me? I would probably go. I am not smart enough to run from a fight when people need help. But I am not you. This is your choice. Not mine." They sat in silence as the sun finished setting. The stars came out, bright and clear in Keswick's unpolluted sky. Jake thought about the 3 years they had spent together. Teaching Ashir about human culture had changed them both. Ashir had learned about equality, about democracy, about the idea that every life had value regardless of strength or weakness. And Jake had learned about Dravic history, about a proud species that had once been noble but had forgotten what nobility truly meant. "If you go," Jake said finally, "you will need upgrades. Your wings are good, but they are not combat ready. If you are going to challenge the Sky Lord, you will need every advantage." Ashir looked surprised. Jake smiled. "You think I have not figured out your plan? You are going to invoke the right of Sky Challenge, the old law that lets anyone challenge for leadership through aerial combat. It is the only way to legally take power. But Ashir, you will be fighting the best warrior in Dravic space, someone who has never been defeated." Ashir nodded slowly. "Yes, that was the plan. Probably a suicide mission. But it was the only way." Jake stood up and walked into his shop. "Then we have work to do. Come on." For the next month, Jake worked on the most advanced upgrades he had ever attempted. He reinforced the wing structure with military-grade alloys he traded his best tools to acquire. He installed micro-thrusters along the wing edges for impossible maneuvers. He upgraded the neural interface to reduce reaction time to almost zero. He built armor plating that was light but strong, covering Ashir's vulnerable areas. Most importantly, he designed the wings to do something biological wings could never do. They could rotate a full 360 degrees. They could lock into positions that defied physics. They could generate bursts of speed that would tear apart normal wings. "These wings," Jake said as he made the final adjustments, "are not trying to copy nature. They are trying to beat it. No Dravic has ever flown like you will fly." Ashir watched Jake work with gratitude in his eyes. The big creature knew what this meant. Jake was not just upgrading machinery. He was giving Ashir the tools to possibly survive an impossible fight. On the last day, Jake stood with Ashir outside the shop. A small cargo ship had landed nearby. It would take Ashir to the edge of Dravic space. After that, he would be on his own. "I will miss you," Jake said simply. "You have been a good friend." Ashir bent down and touched his forehead to Jake's. It was a Dravic gesture of deep respect, usually reserved for family. Then he made a promise. Drawn quickly in the dirt. He would return. Somehow, he would come back. Jake smiled, though his eyes were wet. "I know you will. Just do not die before then. I did not put all this work into you just to have you get killed by some tyrant." Ashir laughed, a sound like thunder. Then he spread his mechanical wings one last time, the morning sun making them shine like silver fire. He took off, circling once above the shop before landing near the cargo ship. Jake watched as his friend disappeared into the ship. The cargo vessel took off, climbing into the sky until it was just a dot. Then nothing. Jake stood there for a long time, looking at the empty sky. His shop felt quiet without the sound of mechanical wings. Too quiet. He walked back inside and sat at his workbench. There was a broken mining drill waiting for repair. Life would go on. But a part of him would always be wondering what was happening in Dravic space, wondering if the paralyzed dragon he had saved was still alive. wondering if kindness and determination could truly change the fate of an empire. Jake picked up his tools and started working. It was all he could do. Wait and hope that the friend who had learned to trust a human mechanic would survive long enough to prove that worth came from character, not from the body you were born with. Dravik Prime had not changed in the 3 years Ashir had been gone. The capital city still sprawled across 3 mountains, connected by massive bridges where Dravik flew between spires and towers. The sky was always full of wings. To be, Dravik was to fly. To be grounded was to be nothing. Ashir approached the city at dawn, his mechanical wings carrying him through the morning clouds. He could see the central arena from miles away. It was carved from the top of the highest mountain, a massive circular platform where all important challenges took place, where his life would either end or change forever. The first Dravik, who saw him, crashed into a building in shock. Ashir was supposed to be dead. The paralyzed warrior who had disappeared 3 years ago, but here he was, flying with wings that gleamed like starlight, wings that were clearly not made of flesh and bone. Word spread faster than fire. By the time Ashir landed on the challenge platform, thousands of Dravik had gathered on surrounding perches and ledges. They stared at him in horror and fascination, at his white scales, at his mechanical wings that folded with perfect precision, at the armor plating that covered parts of his body, at the way he stood tall and strong despite everyone knowing his spine was broken. Skylord Vraxis arrived minutes later, landing with 6 elite guards. He was massive, easily twice Ashir's size, with scales the color of old bronze. His wings were enormous, scarred from countless battles. He had ruled for 20 years through fear and strength. No one had ever defeated him in aerial combat. Vraxis stared at Ashir with disgust. You dare return? You, who were cast out? You, who chose to live as a cripple rather than die with honor? Ashir met his gaze steadily. He could not speak the Dravik language anymore, his throat damaged in the crash. But he did not need words. He raised one mechanical wing and pointed it at Vraxis. The gesture was clear. Challenge. The crowd gasped. One of the guards stepped forward. This abomination cannot challenge. He is not even truly Dravik anymore. He is part machine, part alien technology. But an old Dravik, his scales white with age, flew down from the watching crowd. Jake would have recognized him as a judge, someone who knew the ancient laws. The right of sky challenge is absolute, the elder said. Any Dravik can invoke it, regardless of their body. The law does not say the wings must be born, only that the challenger must fly. The elder, from somebody, only that the challenger must fly. Vraxis laughed, a cruel sound. Let the broken one try then. I will enjoy tearing his metal wings apart. Let it be known across all Dravik space what happens to those who seek power through alien corruption. The terms were set quickly. Traditional aerial combat. No weapons except claws and teeth and the sky itself. First to draw blood from the heart wins. To the death if necessary. The fight would begin when the second sun reached its peak. 1 hour from now. Ashir spent that hour in meditation. He thought about Jake, about the human mechanic who had refused to let him die. About 3 years of learning that strength came in many forms. About the messages from desperate Dravik who needed someone to stand up to tyranny. This was not just about revenge or pride. This was about changing a broken system. When the time came, both fighters took to the sky. Vraxis flew with the confidence of someone who had never lost. His massive wings created powerful drafts. He circled high, using his size advantage to dominate the airspace. Below, thousands of Dravik watched in silence. Ashir rose to meet him, his mechanical wings cutting through the air with efficiency no biological wings could match. The microthrusters Jake had installed gave him bursts of acceleration that seemed to break physics. He was smaller, lighter, faster. Vraxis dove first, claws extended. It was a classic opening move, using gravity and weight to overpower an opponent. But Ashir did something no Dravik had ever done before. His mechanical wings rotated, flipping him in midair. He dodged sideways with impossible speed. Vraxis passed through empty space. Roaring in frustration, the crowd murmured in confusion. That move should not have been possible. Ashir pressed his advantage. He climbed rapidly, his wings never tiring. Biological wings needed rest, needed to catch thermals to conserve energy. His did not. He could fly straight up forever if needed. Vraxis followed, but already his wing beats were showing strain from the effort. They clashed in the upper atmosphere where the air was thin. Claws met armor plating, teeth scraped against metal. Vraxis was stronger in close combat, but Ashir was faster. Every time Vraxis tried to grab him, Ashir would activate his thrusters and slide away, leaving the bigger fighter grasping at air. "Fight like a Dravik," Vraxis roared. "Stop running." But Ashir was not running. He was adapting, using advantages his opponent did not understand. Jake had taught him that intelligence was as important as strength. That winning did not have to mean overpowering your enemy. Sometimes it meant outsmarting them. Vraxis dove again, trying to use his weight to force Ashir toward the ground. But Ashir did something unexpected. He folded his wings completely and dropped like a stone, faster than Vraxis could follow. Then, just 50 feet above the arena platform, he snapped his wings open and shot back up. The sudden reversal of momentum would have torn biological wings apart. His mechanical ones handled it perfectly. He came up underneath Vraxis, claws extended. He raked across the bigger fighter's chest, drawing blood. Not at the heart yet, but close. The crowd was no longer silent. They were shouting, roaring, some in anger at Ashir's unnatural fighting style, others in excitement at seeing their unbeatable Skylord finally challenged. Vraxis was getting tired. Ashir could see it in his wing beats, in his slower reactions. Biological limits were catching up, but Ashir's mechanical wings showed no fatigue. The solar-charged power pack had enough energy for hours more flying. They clashed again and again. Vraxis was bleeding from a dozen cuts now. Ashir had taken damage too, his armor plating scratched and dented, but nothing critical. The fight had gone on for an hour. Then, too, the second sun began to set. Still they fought. Finally, Vraxis made a mistake. He tried one more power dive, putting everything he had into a final attack. But his tired wings were slow to adjust. Ashir saw the opening. He activated all his thrusters at once, shooting forward with acceleration that blurred his form. He struck Vraxis in the chest with both claws, precisely where the heart beat beneath scales and flesh. Blood welled up, bright against bronze scales. Heart blood. The signal of defeat. Vraxis fell, barely catching himself before hitting the arena platform. He landed hard. Wings spread in exhaustion. Beaten. The undefeated Skylord had lost to a paralyzed Dravik with mechanical wings. Ashir landed gracefully in the center of the arena. He stood over Vraxis, who waited for the killing blow that tradition demanded. The crowd was silent, waiting to see what the victor would do. Ashir stepped back. He would not kill. That was not what Jake had taught him. Strength was not about taking life. It was about choosing mercy when you had the power to destroy. The old judge flew down. Ashir has won by drawing heartblood. By ancient law, he is now Sky King, the first Sky King ever to rise from paralysis, the first to fly with wings not born from his body. Some in the crowd roared approval. Others looked uncertain. Change was frightening. But all of them had seen something they thought impossible. A broken warrior had defeated the strongest among them. Ashir spread his mechanical wings wide. They caught the light of the setting suns, shining like silver fire. He made a sound, loud enough for everyone to hear. A promise. Things would change. The weak would no longer be cast aside. Worth would be measured by character, not by the body you were born with. And somewhere, on a distant frontier planet, a human mechanic named Jake Murphy would have smiled if he had known what his friend had just accomplished. 6 months had passed since Ashir left. Jake had not heard any news. The communication networks did not reach well between human and Dravic space. And even if they did, Jake was just a mechanic on a frontier planet. Why would anyone tell him about events happening in an alien empire? He assumed Ashir was dead. It was the logical conclusion. One paralyzed Dravic, even with mechanical wings, challenging an entire system built on strength and combat prowess. The odds had been impossible. Jake tried not to think about it too much. He focused on his work, fixed what was broken, helped where he could. On a quiet morning, Jake was replacing the hydraulic system on a cargo loader when he heard the sound. Engines. Many engines. He stepped outside and looked up. The sky was full of ships. Dozens of them. Large vessels with designs Jake did not recognize. They were definitely not human ships. They were Dravic warships. Jake's heart sank. Had they come for revenge? Had they discovered that a human had helped one of their own? And now they were here to punish him? He thought about running. But where would he go? Keswick had nowhere to hide. The largest ship landed near his workshop. The ground shook from its weight. A boarding ramp extended, and figures emerged. Dravic warriors, dozens of them. Their scales gleaming in the morning sun. They moved aside, forming two lines, creating a path. Then Ashir walked down the ramp. He was wearing ceremonial armor now, decorated with symbols Jake did not know, but could guess at. Leader symbols. Sky King symbols. His mechanical wings were polished to a mirror shine. He looked regal, powerful, nothing like the broken creature Jake had found in a storm 3 years ago. Jake just stood there, wrench still in his hand, unable to process what he was seeing. Ashir walked up to him and lowered his massive head until they were eye level. Those red eyes held warmth and joy. Then Ashir made a sound, and Jake started crying without meaning to. "You did it," Jake said, his voice breaking. "You actually did it." One of the Dravic warriors stepped forward. She was smaller than most, with deep blue scales. She spoke in perfect human English. "I am Sky Voice Kendra. I speak for the Sky King when words are needed. Ashir says he has returned to see his teacher. The one who gave him life when life was gone. The one who taught him that worth comes from within, not from the body we wear." Jake wiped his eyes. "I just fixed what was broken. That is what I do." Kendra translated for Ashir, and the big creature made an amused rumbling sound. She smiled. "The Sky King says you fixed much more than machinery. You fixed an entire way of thinking. He has brought gifts." The Dravic warriors began unloading crates from the ship. Advanced technology. Medical supplies. Trade goods. Enough wealth to buy a small moon. Jake stared at it all in shock. "I cannot accept this," he said. "It is too much." Ashir made another sound, more insistent. Kendra translated. "The Sky King insists. But he understands if these gifts make you uncomfortable. He has another proposal instead." She gestured, and several more Dravic came down the ramp. These ones were different. Some had scars. Some limped. One had no wings at all. Just empty spaces where they should have been. They looked at Jake with hope in their eyes. "The Sky King has changed Dravic society," Kendra explained. "No, Dravic is cast aside anymore for disability or weakness. But our medical technology cannot help everyone. These Dravic heard stories about what you built for Ashir. They have come seeking the same chance to be whole again, in whatever form that takes." Jake looked at the disabled Dravic, then at Ashir, then at his small workshop. "You want me to help them? All of them?" "Not just them," Kendra said. "Hundreds more wait on the ships. Maybe thousands eventually. The Sky King wishes to establish a permanent Dravic presence here. An embassy. A place where our two species can learn from each other. Where human innovation in adaptation technology can help Dravic who need it. And where Dravic can share their knowledge in return." Jake sat down on a crate, overwhelmed. His quiet life was about to become very complicated. He looked at Ashir. "Is this really what you want? To turn my workshop into some kind of medical center?" Ashir nodded firmly. Then he drew in the dirt with his claw, just like he used to. He drew two figures side by side. One human, one Dravik. Partners. Friends. Building something better together. Jake thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Then he stood up. Okay. But I am going to need a bigger workshop, and probably help. I cannot build mechanical wings for thousands of Dravik by myself. Kendra laughed. That is already arranged. The Sky King has sent engineers and craftsmen. They will work under your direction. You design. They build. Together. The next weeks were chaos. Jake's small repair shop was torn down and rebuilt as a massive facility. Dravik engineers worked alongside human construction crews. The design was part workshop, part hospital, part cultural exchange center. It grew larger every day. Jake found himself in the strange position of being one of the most important humans in the galaxy without ever meaning to be. Ambassadors from the Galactic Council came to visit. They wanted to understand how a simple mechanic had changed the course of an entire empire. Jake told them the truth. He had just helped a friend. Nothing more complicated than that. But the Council saw it differently. The Human-Dravik Alliance became official. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchange programs started. All because a mechanic refused to let someone die in a storm. Jake trained dozens of human and Dravik technicians in his methods. They learned to build neural interfaces, mechanical limbs, artificial wings. The technology spread. Soon, disabled individuals from dozens of species were coming to Keswick, seeking the help that Jake had pioneered. One evening, after a long day of teaching, Jake sat outside with Ashir like they used to. The facility was lit up behind them, full of activity, even at night. The sky had a new kind of traffic now. Dravik flying alongside human shuttles. Species that had barely known each other 6 months ago now working side by side. You know what is funny? Jake said. I came to Keswick to get away from the busy core worlds. I wanted quiet. Peace. A simple life. Ashir made an apologetic rumbling sound. Kendra, who had become a permanent resident and Jake's official liaison, translated. The Sky King says he ruined your quiet life. Jake laughed. Yeah, you did. But you know what? I think I like this better. Turns out fixing machines was not as satisfying as fixing lives. Who knew? He looked up at the stars. Earth was out there somewhere, along with all the core worlds he had left behind. They had probably heard about him by now. The mechanic who changed everything. He wondered what they thought. Probably that he was crazy. Maybe he was. I have been thinking, Jake said, about what happens next. This facility is good, but it is not enough. There are billions of people out there who need help. We should build more centers, train more technicians, spread this as far as we can. Ashir made an enthusiastic sound. Kendra translated. The Sky King says he was hoping you would say that. The Dravik Council has already approved funding for 10 more facilities across the galaxy. They want you to design them all. Jake smiled. Then I guess we have work to do. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the activity around the facility. Jake thought about that stormy night 3 years ago. How a simple choice to help someone had led to all of this. He had not changed the galaxy because he was special. He had changed it because he refused to look away from suffering. Because he believed everyone deserved a chance. That was the real human superpower, he thought. Not technology. Not military might. Just the stubborn refusal to accept that anyone was beyond help. The belief that compassion could move mountains, change empires, and turn a broken dragon into a king. Ashir nudged him gently with his head. Jake reached up and patted the big creature's snout. Come on, he said. We have 3 more neural interfaces to finish before midnight. Those new patients are not going to fix themselves. They walked back into the facility together. A human mechanic and a Sky King. The most unlikely partnership in the galaxy. And maybe the most important one. The stars shone down on Keswick, on the facility that would change millions of lives, on the proof that kindness and determination could accomplish what armies and politicians never could. One simple act of helping someone who needed it had reshaped the future. And Jake Murphy, who had only ever wanted to fix what was broken, had fixed something far greater than he ever imagined. He had fixed the idea that some lives were worth more than others, and that fix would last forever.